Although familiar in most areas of Microsoft integration, today Sandro Pereira focuses on migrating earlier BizTalk versions to BizTalk Server 2020. What are the best practices? Should you do an in-place upgrade or a side-by-side migration? How do you migrate your BizTalk solutions? This and many more topics will be topics in his today's session. Over to you, Sandro.
Hi. Thank you, Lex, for introduction. So, as you may know, my name is Sandro Pereira. I'm work as a head of integration at DevScope for the last 15 years, I guess. I am a Microsoft Azure MVP for the last 10 years. I was a BizTalk MVP, I was an integration MVP, and now I'm an Azure MVP focused on integration landscape. You have there my contacts, my blog, my Twitter, my LinkedIn. Just if you want to connect with me, please do it. If you send any questions, feel free to do that. I will try to help you as fast as I can, based on my free agenda. So, first of all, I miss you guys. I'm sick and tired to stay at home doing online events. I hope next year we'll be all together in London, in the US again on this amazing event. I stopped counting the number of times we did that in the past 10 years. We start as almost 100 people in the first event in London, and now 1,200 online event, but in person it was kind of 500 people. So it's awesome to see this event growing here after the year. Yeah, you may wonder why talk about my BizTalk and BizTalk migration. To be honest, this is the first session I'm doing in the last 6 months focus on BizTalk. Okay, I did 8 sessions about Logic App, most of them on Logic App standard that was released, and some of them Logic App best practices and tips and tricks. And 5 of them were about Power Automate, kind of Logic App related. But well, we all like to play with new toys, no? I like to speak with new topics, but for example, I bought a car 10 years ago, my Toyota Avensis, 126 horsepower. We play for the last 10 years. I enjoyed riding. It took me in too much places, and recently my boss just gave me a Mercedes-Benz, a company car with 309 horsepower. No, I was really happy, but guess what? My wife doesn't allow me to speed up too much on that car. So if I pass 100 kilometers per hour, she's already screaming at me. So the point is that both of them will give me from point A to point B, depending of my requirements. And the same happens with technology. It doesn't matter if it is Logic App, BizTalk, or other features on Azure. The important if they need to fit the requirements of your clients, no? And also, why this session is because in the last 7 months, I already installed 14 new BizTalk environments. 6 of them are in production environments, 8 of them are non-production environments. Still, I installed 14 new installations. Only one is on-premise, not hosted in Azure. The rest of them are Azure VMs. I'm still planning to, at the moment, it's on the roadmap to install 6 additional BizTalk new environments, 2 of them production environments. And in all of these, and even the old environments that I'm working with several clients, we also are taking advantage of Azure features and modernizing our integration landscape. And also, there are a lot of clients that are investing in, or did a lot of investment in BizTalk. And BizTalk is still a stable and robust platform. In some cases, they are still using because they cannot leave the on-premise facilities. The data of them cannot leave the on-premise facilities. Now is a bit easier to migrate to this logic app standard that is on GA at the moment. But still, there are a lot of investments in BizTalk, and it's still a valid platform. Another reason for doing this talk is, as Sarvana mentioned on the first session, is we are almost releasing a new book, the Migrating to BizTalk Server 2020. This is a book not written only for me, but Tom Cantor and Lex as authors only also. The three of us are writing this book. Is almost complete. Is on the final staging of compiling everything and send it to the publisher for them to put in a kind of beautiful way. We are not the designers. We just write and that's it. And we have two amazing reviewers, Steve Lenkow as a technical reviewer. Joe Wan is doing an awesome job reviewing our English, mainly my English, and the structure of the book. She's doing amazing work. You may know this woman, Mandy, is doing the foreword of the book. I think is a great book. Again, if you are interested in knowing more about the book, you can go to the link and register for when it's complete. You get a notification about that. So the book is divided on 6 chapters. This session will cover more or less kind of these topics. We have an overview of BizTalk Server. What are the new features? What are the deprecate features? So standard stuff. Why to migrate to BizTalk 2020? The reasons why you should migrate from previous versions of BizTalk to BizTalk 2020. Then preparing what you need to understand for preparing yourself and the client to upgrade to a new version of BizTalk Server. We have a chapter dedicated to Inplace upgrade, and then migrating to BizTalk 2020 as a side-by-side migration. And despite not being the goal of the book, the last chapter is migrating to Azure. So kind of what is Azure, what is BizTalk Server, migrating to infrastructure as a service or to software as a service. And actually going to start in this session speaking about this topic. Now, so if you want to migrate your existing BizTalk solutions to Azure, you have 2 options. First, and the easy one, is migrate, stay in BizTalk again, but migrate your VMs to Azure. It takes advantage of reliability on the VMs on Azure. You have scalability then having in on-premise with your hardware. So you don't have hardware, you have the VMs on Azure. It can scale faster if you want. And when I mean scaling, just add new RAM and CPUs and so on and so forth. So you still have all the investment that you did in BizTalk available, but you don't have hardware locally. You have the machines on Azure. And the other is migrate to Azure. I'm not saying migrate to Logic App, because that's impossible. Logic App is just a small part of integration service on Azure, but Migrate as your BizTalk solutions, you have to think as Azure as a whole, everything, not just Azure Integration Service that are the main components that you will be using, but you need to think about other components available on Azure. So you need to think as a whole on Azure. You have available a tool that it's called BizTalk Migration. I don't think it's the best term that to be called this tool BizTalk Migration. You have a session of Tume on day 3rd about that. He will speak way more than me about this topic. I'm not going to enter there. I just think this is not really a BizTalk migration tool. It should be called as a BizTalk migration guidelines. Why? Because there is no magic button to migrate BizTalk to the cloud. Okay, there are too much topics to think about doing what we are doing in Permis to Azure. It's not about only the features, but about the cost and about the taste of you doing something with certain features. Okay, there is no one-to-one match. There is one-to-n match. So depending on the cost, and the cost will play a fair amount of importance in the Azure, because especially if you are a new client and you want to migrate and invest on Azure, they will chase you about costing. So avoid too much controlling costing. So this will play also a good importance of you migrate to Azure. And if you do a quick overview of features about BizTalk and Azure, let's say message routing. Well, quite easy in BizTalk. This is BizTalk messages box, property promotion, filters. We have message routing, content-based routing, whatever. If you think about Azure, well, we can do it. The thing that goes to your mind is Azure Service Bus, queues, topics, message header, properties, message properties, and subscriptions. You do amazing work, no? But also you can do event grid, or even you can use API management to route the message, no? Simple routing depending on the sum of the properties. You can actually set one service, one backup service or another backup service. You can do this easily. You can do it in SQL Server, for example, or you can use Azure Cache for Redis. It supports PubSub mechanism. So there are a lot of options there. Schemas, just to add the contract of the message. Well, it's quite simple. In BizTalk, we have BizTalk schemas. It supports XML, JSON, flat file schemas. So we have everything there. With Logic App, well, first thing that you need to see, the first thing that you think is integration account. You need to have an integration account to store schemas. And then you need to use Logic App to validate the schemas, for example. Well, integration account is a little costly. It is a little expensive. So you can do the same using a storage account, as a function, or an API app to do what the Azure integration account is doing, and then use also Logic App to do this validation. Of course, you cannot use the actions, the default actions, but you can do it by code easily. Or you can use Logic App as standard. It doesn't require the integration account. It supports schemas out of the box. Mapping, well, there is BizTalk Server mapping. There is XSLT. If you want liquid, yeah, you sometimes can do it in API management also, and then routing them to BizTalk, taking advantage of the integration features on Azure and this hybrid connectivity available in BizTalk to do the same, to do these JSON to XML or JSON to JSON mapping. If you are looking to Azure, it's the same of the schemas. You think about integration account, XSLT, liquid templates, and then you use logic app. You can do the same with storage account, everything kind of more a custom code way to do it. And you have logic app, again, logic app standard that has this availability out of the box without the integration account. Well, if you think in pipelines, you think that BizTalk has default pipelines, custom pipelines, you have custom pipeline components, you have default pipeline components, you can do whatever you want, no? You can what is the term? Modeling your message to the correct form, standardize your message to what BizTalk likes. That is kind of XML. No? If you think what is a pipeline on Azure, it's more tricky. So we can actually have, for example, a logic app acting as a pipeline that receives the message, normalizing the message or standardizing the message, and deliver to another logic app or another service ahead. No, well, API management can also act as a pipeline. If you want to, for example, converting the JSON to XML. This is what BizTalk do in a pipeline sometimes, most of the time. No, well, you can use again code as a function or API app. Again, depending on the taste, depending on the requirements. You want low latency, it doesn't need to be low latencies. You want to have more control on the cost, and so on and so forth. Adapters. So in kind of adapters, there's a lot of stuff in BizTalk that are out-of-the-box adapters, and there are custom adapters that you can create. You can also say that IAS is an adapter because if you put HTTP in front is IAS that will deliver to you. API management is also the same for Azure instead of exposing in IAS. Well, in Azure, there are connectors. That is the most related stuff that you see as an adapter is the connector, okay? But actually, you can use also logic app acting as an adapter, no? For example, BizTalk has these dynamic adapters. So you can use an adapter in a dynamic way, and you base on runtime settings, you set the configuration to that adapter. Kind of this is not possible to do in logic app or with the default connectors. They don't really like dynamic settings about connectivity. No, well, in a smart way, you can do it using logic app acting as an adapter and kind of filtering and content-based routing. And you create this kind of dynamic static adapter or connectivity. Well, you can use always Azure functions or API app, but if you are using that, you lose the connectors availability, these 400 or more connectors that are available out of the box in Azure, but you have the possibility to do it in a dynamic way because it's basically code. No, an orchestration. Yeah, orchestration you can do in BizTalk is an orchestration. You can do a lot of C# because we know for the past 20 years that raise the hand, the person we never see an orchestration with a C# code inside, and that's it. So you can do a lot of this with C#. The equivalent to Azure, it's Logic App. Okay, Logic App, it is a workflow. But you can also use Azure Functions or an API app. Why using Azure Functions or a Logic App? Well, I think Beck already mentioned in the Earth session. Well, one is design-based, another is code-based. For example, Azure Function will have more low latency than probably Logic App in the consumption Logic App. Of course, you can use also the Logic App standard with the workflow, the stateless workflow. Then you have more reliability there, more low latency there. If you look to business rules in BizTalk, well, what you can do, there's nothing really out of the box as a business rule. You can create an Azure function with all of this logic. You can create kind of, when I mean SQL server, is databases to do this kind of operation, depending what kind of database you want to play with. Or you can do some kind of custom code component that it's able for you to provide these business rule capabilities of BizTalk. BAM, and do not confuse BAM with tracking, because these are two different stuff. Well, there is nothing out of the box kind of related with BAM. So remember that BAM we can enable, disable in runtime. What I want to catch all of these properties, all of these settings, and put it available. No, there is nothing available at this level on Azure. You can say that you can use a Logic App, extract some data and put inside somewhere. It can be app insights. It can be a SQL app insight. I put there Azure Monitor. There are a lot of stuff in Azure Monitor. App insight is one of them. And of course, Power BI, because remember that BAM has kind of a BI component that is all up cubes and X, some dashboards on Excel, kind of legacy, but there is that. So Power BI is the way to go. Well, tracking, yeah, we have. I put a typo there, but there is tracking available everywhere in BizTalk. We have the same in Logic App run history, tracking properties. Yeah, sure. It is the tracking that we have available in BizTalk. You can use a storage account, Azure Monitor to combine all of this stuff and have a lot of this tracking availability in Azure. ADI. Well, this is one of out-of-the-box functionalities with BizTalk. There are partners, there are agreements to support all the schemas of ADI. In the Azure, we have integration accounts, we have Logic App to do that. If you go to the other accelerators like RosettaNet, HL7, and Swift, well, RosettaNet is supporting integration account and Logic App. HL7, it's more weird. I don't think it's have nothing out of the box with Logic App. The closest we have is Azure API for FIR and Swift. The only thing that I find related to Swift is Azure Blueprint. I'm not really a Swift expert here, but this is the close I found it regarding to that. And the abstraction of code and connectivity in BizTalk. So as a BizTalk developer, we focus our developer on the functionalities, on the type of messaging. And then we have these binding files to connect our code to the systems, okay? It doesn't matter if it's FTP or file. I'm interested in developing based on that messaging. Logic App is different. Azure is different. It's not based on so all the connectors are not based on the message, They are based on the system and on the actions. So it's kind of different. And if you are using Logic App, you create the connector. You always need to explicitly say what is the connection that you are using. It's not like in BizTalk. I'm creating a port, and then the port can be whatever you want. Here, we need to say it is a file, it is a FTP, it is a SQL. And the close we have to this is develop pipelines, so we can do these kind of bindings and deployments to other systems. It's the close I find related in Azure. And there is a lot of other features, SSO, Enterprise Single Sign-On. So what can we do in Azure? Key Vault is the top one, but you can use SQL. You can use an app configuration. It depends on what you are trying to achieve and what you already have. No? Cross-referring. This is a feature that people don't use too much in BizTalk. Some of them never heard about that. But we actually have this cross-referring database in BizTalk where you can say that product ID 1 in system A is ID X in system B. No? At the close we can do it is having a custom SQL database in Azure to do this kind of crossing reference database. And configurations, of course. There are a lot of configurations in BizTalk. Config files, regedit, business rules, SSO application configuration. All of these can be a feature that hosts configurations in BizTalk. Well, the same in Azure. Key Vault, SQL, and app configuration may be the right place to go. So, as you see, there is no magic button that you press and say, migrate my BizTalk solutions to the cloud. Most of these decisions about what you are going to use is based on functionalities, cost, and the client's not requirements, but obsessions about saying we use SQL because you already have SQL to store configuration, so everything needs to be on SQL. We are not going to use SQL because we put everything on app configurations. So clients may have some standards and norms to do that, and you need to fit your design according to the requirements and the guidelines of the client also. Well, for example, one of my clients did a POC about simple stuff, sending message to service bus, having an event hubs, notifying the Logic app, integrate the data with the other system. The point was they would spend 20K for a POC that they were integrating 20 messages a day because they put everything premium. So if you want to have event hubs with service bus, you need premium, and it's quite expensive. At the end of that POC, we did redesign everything to do in a standard way. We put service bus standard or basic, I don't remember. It's again 20 messages per day, simple message. No, it's not that critical. There is no low latency requirement. You just need to guarantee deliver. And at the end, we redesigned the solution that we were building. And instead of paying 20K, we pay like 200 euros a year. No, it's quite a difference. Okay, so cost has a really important stuff to do in Azure. Let's move for the main topic of this session, that is BizTalk migration. So in this case, you are a BizTalk client, you have your BizTalk infrastructure, and you already decide to migrate to 2020. Okay, this is not a matter of deciding should I migrate to BizTalk or should I migrate to Azure. You already decide you need to migrate to BizTalk 2020. Okay. I told last year that, and I continue to say the same, 15% of the effort is to migrate the code, okay? 20% of the effort of migrating a BizTalk environment, it will be evaluate, plan the migration, and building environments, okay? And more than half, so 55%, is about testing the applications, tuning, and optimizations. Why? Because depending again on your client, on your structure of the client, it is kind of difficult to put teams speaking together and arrange availability together. So that will spend more time doing this stuff. And again, you may see these already. This is a repeating slide from last year. If you are from previous version and migrated to 2020, what may be the most painful situations about community frameworks. Rosetta Net that has some issues because we 2020 removed the old SQL adapter. It was deprecated for the last 15 years, but now finally was removed, but people still using the SQL adapter, including Microsoft. So Rosetta Net used the SQL adapter, the old SQL adapter, and then the team redesigned everything to use CF SQL adapter. So you may get some constraints there. You need to take a closer look to that. Mappings, if you are migrating from older than 2010 or over, because I think it was in 2010, we have a new mapping engine. I'm not sure there is in the upcoming slides, there is this information. And of course, migrating from the SQL adapter. Let's say in 1 month or so, I'm going to start a project migrating a BizTalk solution or a platform, and most of the 300 ports they are using SQL adapter, the old SQL adapter. So there will be a kind of painful situation to migrate this old SQL adapter to the OCF SQL adapter there, because you need to regenerate all the schemas. The old schema doesn't fit on this new one. So there will be the extra work on that client. So, but to fit these 15% of migration the source code, there are some basic rules to apply. No, first you need to evaluate, plan, and plan the implementation. Okay, you have to do a catalog of what needs to be migrated, how you need to migrate, what are the dependencies to migrate, and all of this stuff. Arrange a plan and actually go to implement. Do not go immediately to, okay, let me open the source code and compile and blah, 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 that's it. Just do this evaluation first. And by doing this evaluation, you also be understanding if there is some problems that it can be improved. What are the issues that the clients are facing at the moment that sometimes the solutions are really old, and then they can be improved. Okay, so we just need to capture all of these inputs and define a plan. Okay, and decide the order of this migration. What are the order that we are going to pick to migrate all of these solutions? It can be based on the complexity of the solution. Let's start for the easy ones. Okay. Why? Because we want to discontinue as fast as we can the old environment. So we want to lift and ship to the other one, okay? And here I'm talking side-by-side migration, okay? Not in-place migration. So we need, as fast as we can, remove the old stuff and put it in the new one, not to pay additional license or and infrastructure costs and so on and so forth. The goal is to migrate as far as we can and terminate that environments. We can decide for the size of the solution, compatibility features of the source to the target version. For example, I have kind of for solution that doesn't use the old SQL adapter. So that kind of be the easy ones to migrate. So let's start with these ones. And we have one application that uses a lot of SQL old adapter. Let's leave that to the end because it will give you more work. So we can decide the migration order based on any kind of scenario, or the client can decide they need that order for importance of the applications, no? And try to migrate the solution as is immediately, okay? So the point is, again, remove everything from the old environment and put in the new environment to discontinue one machine or the other machines that are from previous version of BizTalk, okay? I already faced some scenarios that I had to migrate to 2020, BizTalk 2013 and BizTalk 2010, so two environments. So we start for the 13 and then we went to the 2010 and put everything together in one. But try to migrate as is. If you find, of course, you need to fix the breaking features. Let's say, what is a breaking feature? If you are migrating from an old version of BizTalk that has some mapping issues about compatibility, you need to fix that, okay? Because this is a breaking feature. If you are migrating a solution that uses the old SQL adapter, yeah, you need to migrate. You need to fix that SQL adapter, but only what is really necessary. If you find something that it should be improved, you do not do it immediately. You put on the roadmap, okay? You migrate as is and create your roadmap of improvements. After you migrate, after you discontinue the environment, then you should improve that. Again, you need to remove one machine as fast as we can. We need to put everything as fast as we can in the new environment, running as the old environment. That also enables you that the period of testing will be shorter because you are not changing nothing. You are just testing if everything is compatible, everything is working as expected in the old environment because we didn't change nothing. So the testing will be easier. If you bind everything together, if you migrate, for example, a BizTalk 2010 solution to 2020 and improve that solution, when you test the solution and if something fails, it will be more difficult to understand if you break something on the migration or the problem that is happening is because you change the code to improve all of these new capabilities of the integration. So to easier this process, you should migrate as is, define the list of improvements and do it afterwards, okay? And what you need to do exactly to migrate a solution, a BizTalk solution. So most of the times, it's just copy the solution to the new environment, okay? Open the solution in Visual Studio because it will automatically migrate the old version of Visual Studio Project to this Visual Studio 2019 solution. You should fix the .NET Framework version. I normally use 4.8. You always need to fix and take a closer look to these deployment properties, because all of these application name and the server will be lost, or it will be in the old environment reference. So we need to fix that properties. Depending on the version that you are migrating, you need to validate the strong name key, and then build, and then deploy. Simple as that. Okay, I'm not going to tell you lies and say this is quite difficult to do or not. No, you just do that. And of course, if there some problems happen, some errors on the building, you need to address them. But most of the times it's simple as that. But there are also exceptions. What are the problems that may happen? So in 2013, there was a new XSLT, new mapping transformation engine. Okay, so if you are migrating from 2010 or lower, you have to have a close attention to the mappings. Some of the issues, it will be highlighted while you compile. Some of them you only notice when you are testing. Of course, you can always go and set on the mapping, I want to use the old transformation engine or the new one, okay? The problem is that, for example, ESB Toolkit doesn't honor that flag. So you have to take a look, take attention of that if you are using ESB Toolkit. Another is in 2013, I was aware that there is a string limitation while you are doing concatenations inside an expression, inside orchestrations, okay? If you are trying to concatenate a string with more than 4 inputs, that will fail. Don't ask me why. So you need to do a concatenation of concatenations inside the express shape, or you can use helper class to do it, and there you can do whatever you want. There is no limitation at all. And of course, deprecate adapters remove from BizTalk 2020 SQL adapter. I mean, you can always install the old SQL adapter, but I will not recommend you to do that. You can do it in one circumstances if you want. Migrate as is everything using the old SQL adapter. Just you want to discontinue one environment quickly, and then as soon as that task is over, you migrate all of these SQL ports and SQL schemas to the CF SQL adapter. And of course, in 2010, there was a new trade partner management. At that moment, from 2009 to 2010, there was a party migration tool. So if you are migrating from older than 2020, you may need to, and you are using trade partner management, you probably need to do migration to 2010 first, and then migrate to 2020, because probably it is easier to do that, or you need to do it everything manually, okay? And if you are migrating from 2010, older than 2010, the solution will not open in the new Visual Studios. So you need a step environment just to open the solution, the Visual Studio solution in, for example, BizTalk Server 2010. Just open the solution, save it, close it, and go to 2020. It will be able to open the solutions for example, from 2004 and so on and so forth. But where is the ugly work that you may face while migrating from environments? So the most difficult part is when you want to migrate, for example, BAM, keeping the BAM data in the new environment. So you are migrating to 2020, but you want to keep all of these BAM historic in the new environment. Yes, it is possible. The book will explain you how to do that, but it's something that you need to test it properly. Okay, it is not an easy task. Migrate cross-reference databases. So we have this amazing functionality in BizTalk that is cross-referencing. It can do a good job doing that. It's not too much used. I use it in previous projects, in previous migrations, and the only problem is that we don't have an easy way to export and import. So the importation is based on XML files. So basically, if you want to do that in the standard way, you need to create these XML files with all the data and then import using the command line tool. Of course, you can do it in other ways, basically directly in SQL, but you need to use some workarounds to do that. And for example, migrate Rosetta Net trading partners agreements. And the reason why is kind of difficult. It's not difficult, it's really annoying. It's because you need to do it manually. There is no exportation, importation functionality. So you need to do it. So depending how large is your Rosetta Net, you need to configure everything in a manually. So if you have like 20 process configurations and 20 agreements, you need to do it these 20 times or 40 times manually, all of this data, okay? In-place migration. In-place migration, it is possible, but it has a limit migration path. So you cannot migrate from 2020 to 2020. So basically, only a previous version can basically do an in-place migration. You can actually do from, for example, 2013 R2, but then you need to migrate to another version and then to another version. So it's kind of difficult. It's not really, you have to align the platform to be able to migrate to 2020 as an in-place migration. It is a big bang migration. So everything at that runtime, it will be migrated to 2020. The application is still running on the .NET framework that were initially done, but is a big bang migration. It can have an extended downtime during the migration. The risk is too high. So sometimes rollback it's not really possible, okay? So it's too risky, it's possible, but I really don't recommend to do that. The best of the best scenarios, and you may look to this slide and see Dan's Rosanova, but it's quite a coincidence. It was not intentional. This is one of my projects. I did a demo on that in 2019. So we are migrating mass data. We are using BizTalk in integration service to extract this data from manufacturing and put in SAP. And it started to grow more manufacturing to that system. And we kind of have to create an historic database to support all of these huge amount of data that we are doing. And we start evolving our infrastructure. We start on-premise using BizTalk and SQL integration service. And then we start using Power BI and Power BI dashboards. We start doing hybrid integration with Logic App, mainly for notifications for the teams about lockings and failures and all of this stuff. We start putting PowerShells also and doing API management and, again, Logic App. We recently start doing data factoring and put in a data lake and do AI on our system. I don't know what they are doing in AI, but we know that I know that they are doing. I stopped with the data factory and that's it. We are doing also extracting the data from the mesh systems, doing ETL, data lake. We are putting in SQL. There are also connectivity with Logic App to clean all the data that is in mesh systems. And we recently are going to open for external systems to communicate to on-premise or to the cloud integration. So I think hybrid has a really good potential to solve all of our integration needs, not only Logic App, not only BizTalk, but mixing all of these together. Microsoft has really, really a powerful technology to do integration. That's it. If you are looking to have a change in our careers, we have open space for you. Feel free to go there. And that's everything on my session. I don't know if I still have time to Q&A. Can we say Logic App replace 100% BizTalk functionalities? No. Logic App is just a small piece of this is a workflow. It's workflow logic. Azure can replace almost 100% BizTalk functionality. Azure as a whole, integration service as the main components to do integration. But even integration service, that 5 service that they are saying that this integration service doesn't fit all of them. And it still need to use key vaults, application configuration, App Insight, all of this stuff. So Azure can replace BizTalk. Logic App cannot. Okay. Is there any other Azure tool that can be used for doing complex transformations instead of custom XSLT? Data factor doesn't seem to, depending on the complex transformation and depending on your scenarios, I'm saying this is XSLT or liquid templates. You can do Azure functions and do it by code. Okay. BizTalk ability to listen to hundreds of file locations. How can we do that in Azure as clean as that? Well, you need to do that. You can probably use a lot of 100 of Logic App acting as an adapter, as a picking locations, and then send it to your main process. It's a way to do that. It is possible to process ADI in Logic App. Yes, it's possible. So ADI is fully support on integration account. Okay, you need to have an integration account along as Logic App. So Logic App has only been only feature doesn't allow you to do too much of ADI. It doesn't have trading partners and agreements and so on. You have to have a combination of Logic App and an integration account. Can you address how to implement guarantee once and only once delivery? Can you guarantee how to implement guarantee once and only once delivery, including two-phase commitment? Distribute? I don't know. I have to do an analysis of that requirement. I guess it's possible, no? Guarantee once delivery. Well, you put on a queue a service bus queue, it's only one subscriber will get that queue. If you are able to send it, you send it only once. No, I don't know if that's really what it's about this question, but yeah, I think you can do it. You just need to look at what is correct requirements of that.
Sandro, I hate to say it, but we have run over time.
Okay, I will try to answer that in offline.
yeah. Time just went so fast. We went over time.
Indeed.
I noticed that somebody mentioned that. I wasn't even aware of it. But indeed, I'm afraid that we have to stop the stream so people can join the next session.
Exactly. No worries. Again, a pleasure to be here and see you during these days in conference.
Fantastic. We'll be in touch, Sandro. Thanks for your session. We'll be in touch. Cheers.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Covey.co